Flip Flop. You know, it's one of those days, but it's all right. Flip, Floss, and Fly, presented by Say It Loud Canada, the ultimate financial literacy program, brought to you by the Black Business and Professional Association and the Donald Reid Estate. Here are your hosts from Flip, Floss, and Fly, Andre Smith, financial literacy expert and poet, Farley Flex, social activist and entertainment trailblazer, and Roderick Brereton, social entrepreneur and conflict management specialist. Now, here we go. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to see you on this Saturday morning for Flip, Floss, and Fly. Hoping all is well and hoping that you are feeling good, like Nina Simone has stated. And, you know, my favorite line in that song is butterflies out in the sun. You know how I feel. And, you know, a butterfly is so carefree and it flies just so gently throughout the sky. It's just a beautiful image. So again, hoping all is well with you and yours. Tell a friend to tell a friend that we are on every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Flip, Floss, and Fly, the ultimate financial literacy program, speaking the language of the community. Farley Flex, you're on with us. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing fantastic, my brother. Looking forward to this session. As always, sharing knowledge, gaining knowledge, you know, just transferring it. One thing about knowledge, I remember, just a quick story, a gentleman who was collecting all of the Caravana costumes historically, he shared with me that knowledge is like, it's not like a cookie or a piece of cake where you divide it into pieces and you have less remaining. Knowledge multiplies when you share it. So that's what the Flip, Floss, and Fly reminds me of, the multiplication of knowledge shared amongst as many people that participate as possible. And then hopefully they go on and share it with others. So, you know, the multiplicity of what we're doing here is very, very critical in terms of, you know, moving our community forward. You know, that's the objective, moving the community forward.
All right. Andre Smith, how are you this morning, King?
I am fantastic. You know, it's always an honor to like be here with everybody, share knowledge and having meaningful discussions on, you know, whatever it is as a community. You know, my grandmother, may her soul rest in peace, but she taught me from early the importance of community. And that's something that I live by today. Routines actually, is I like to check my energy. You know, I always tell people energy is one of those important but yet overlooked things. And, you know, just being positive. I'm actually super excited because I finally got my my picture on the wall.
Yeah, I know that.
Two of our most famous basketball players. So we have LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Jordan. So RIP Kobe. And, you know, the Raptors playing this evening, so I'm super excited. I'm glad that we came back in game 3 there. Before I get into the discussion, I actually want to share this little piece that I wrote. It's about integration. It's not a poem, so don't get your hopes up there. But integration is an important yet often overlooked aspect of our existence. Life is about finding harmony and peace. When you are able to find inner peace, you will come to realize how noisy your surrounding is. Finding the perfect marriage between time and meaningful relationships is worth striving for. With integration, you accept the challenges of the world, and you will understand that even when people who are close to you don't support you, life goes on. Integrate mind, body, and soul with a harmonious relationship and purpose, and the outcome, perfect integration. So that's just a little piece that I wrote that I wanted to share before we get into the discussion. So always try to be in touch with your inner being, all right? Connect that with your surrounding. All right, so this is week 12. So we've been having a lot of meaningful discussions, and we are gonna continue that today. We're going to do a quick recap, right? Because it's 12 weeks of information. I wanna make sure that everyone is retaining information. So we're just gonna do a comprehensive review of some of the content that we've covered, and then we're going to look into goal setting, right? So goal setting is a very important aspect of financial literacy, of our overall existence, right? We need to be able to set goals and achieve those goals, because that in turn helps us to feel fulfilled and to feel confident about ourselves, right? So we're going to walk through goal setting and financial planning. All right, so for those joining for the first time, again, my name is Andre Smith, and I'm the financial literacy coach. I've been delivering this session for 12 weeks, today make 12 weeks. I'm an immigrant from Jamaica, founder of FLIP and FLOSS, and so FLIP and FLOSS is an acronym for Financial Literacy and Investor Program, and Future Leaders Obtaining Sufficient Skills. So there's a crazy story behind how that name came about, but if you want to know, we can chat more. I also have a tax and consulting business called Easy Solution Tax and Consulting Services. This year, I got the CBC Community Champion Award for my work around financial literacy in the community. And it's something that we are continuing to do to present day, because we want to ensure that everyone in the community is financially literate. Can I get some IRE on that? We want everyone to be able to make intelligible financial decisions. Can I get some IRE?
IRE.
Good stuff. All right, so just to recap, so our 4 key competency areas that we've gone through most of these. So we've covered, personal finance. We've talked about budgeting, debt management strategies, cash flow, etc. We've done investment and banking fundamentals. We've also covered wills, insurance, and estate planning. And in the last few section of the presentations, we've done some taxation and retirement planning. And we're going to continue that discussion today and into next week. So, if there is any question before we continue, any burning question, any concern, or just how I just want some feedback as to how people are feeling about Flip, Floss, and Fly, right? Because if you're not feeling good, and if this program hasn't changed how you think about finances in any way, I'm just gonna drop the microphone and walk away. Actually, I don't have a microphone, but I'm just gonna walk away. Can we just have like a few moments to just talk about the program and how it has impacted you as an individual or the people around you?
That's great, Andre. I think one of the things we need to be sure of is that folks are going back and accessing the previous sessions, because it's obviously there's going to be various amounts of comprehension as we go through the content. It's pretty dense at sometimes in terms of the quantity of information. So we encourage folks to go back and check the archive sessions for any reflective moments you may need, because that's what's really going to allow you to absorb all the knowledge, right?
And those are all online, right, Farley? Because a few people asked about.
Yep, they are all online.
Our peoples at the BBPA have posted all of the sessions, and they will continue to do so. And it actually leads your question right now, Andre, leads to our word of the day. For 2 weeks, we have a word of the day, and it's commitment. This is the second week of commitment.
Yes, sir.
And, Farley and I have coined a phrase, stick-to-itiveness. And, anything that we do that we want to see results that are going to benefit ourselves and then in turn our communities, we have to be committed. We've got to stick to it, and we've got to go the extra mile. So, you being here with us for the last 12 weeks is a testament of your commitment, and we value you, we appreciate you, and we just continue to ask you to tell a friend or just to reverberate the information that you've learned, so that everybody else is able to access and learn as a community and build that capacity, which is so badly needed. So thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Yeah,
can I say something too?
Sure.
Just to segue on what you guys were saying, as I'm listening to the words that are coming up in knowledge sharing, it says if we don't share, knowledge multiplies, and for the word for commitment as we commit. Thank you, Andre, and thanks for facilitating this session there, Farley and the BPA. One of the things for me that I really appreciate is the fact that even though the information is a lot, retention challenges, to really absorb it. But what works for me, and I'm suggesting, is as I'm listening to some of the things that are brought up that affects me or has to do with my situation, I put it into action. So I take steps to modify, rectify, or change my specific financial areas of concern. For example, my little success stories, as Andre shared with us, that did you know? And then so my message, I'm passing it on to other people, is did you know this? Because I tried it and it works. He told us as students, and I know a lot of students are on, that you can go to the bank and tell them your status has changed to student status, and they will give you that rate. They will give you a preferred rate with your banking fees. And I did it yesterday, and lo and behold, they told me, yes, they changed it, not just the reduced rate, but I pay no monthly fee. And not only that, they have made a request to have me indemnified for all the times that I paid monthly fee, because I've been a student for 3 years. So hopefully I'll get a little lump sum. So thank you. And I'm telling people.
And not only that, Marlene, I'll be waiting for my cut.
That's exactly what I told her.
I told Farley says, oh, okay, yes. It was a hallelujah day today. So you know what? People, and look at me. I'm a grandma student. So it don't mean you don't feel ashamed to go in and say, I'm pre-senior and I want my discount. So anybody's online as student, go and tell the bank. And you know what I told them? I'm doing a FLIP FLOSS and FLY literacy program, and the facilitator told me to come tell you that I'm entitled to this. They didn't even bat an eyelid. They just got the manager and one, and that's it.
Good stuff. I love that story. Thanks for sharing, Marlene. And so that's what we're talking about, is not only learning, but implementing what you learn in your day-to-day living, right? And look at that, a big check just before Christmas, actually just before Thanksgiving. And so I'll be thanking Marlene once I see my cut show up at the door. So I appreciate that.
Andre, hopefully Marlene appreciates the word association between commitment and commission.
I do. I will make a commitment. If I get a good check, I will send something to the BBPA as I say, yes, this is, you know what I'm thinking, and you know me already. I'm thinking about FLIP, FLOSS, and FLY for youth, like between 4 and 12. Let's do that for them, because I think they need it too. Work on that. That is a good thing.
At the foundation. Yeah, we definitely have to start as early as we can.
Yep.
All right, Andre, what do you have for us this week, my brother?
All right, so we're gonna continue with the discussion. So our trivia challenge for this week. So can someone come on? So unmute yourself, turn on your video, state your name, where you're from, and answer this question. So what is a notice of objection and a notice of assessment? So we talked about these last week. So can someone come on? I love the fact that people are participating.
Andre, we hear you not well. It's far. Andre, you are far.
Yeah,
your volume went down a little bit, brother.
My volume. Okay, let me just bring that up.
I'm not
Can
sure.
you guys hear me clearly right now?
We can hear you clearly, but it's not not as loud as you were before.
You know, my connection is a bit unstable. Is it good now?
No.
Nope.
Yes, taking over from me.
Say it loud, brother.
Say it loud. Is that good?
Michael's looking for a reprieve. Boy, Michael said you're taking over for him as a technologically challenged individual on the
call. That's not good. That's not good.
I think you just probably have to speak up a little bit louder for now, Andre. But we can hear you.
Turn up your own volumes as well.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but it's not as loud as it was earlier. But just speak up a little bit louder, and it should work.
And folks can turn up the volume as well.
Yeah. Is it good now?
No, just keep going.
We can hear you, but it's not as loud. It's not. It's in terms of the volume, but we can hear you. Yeah, but yeah. Listen intently, and folks, turn up your volumes.
All right. So yeah, sorry. So I'm like change my presentation location because this connection is.
Yeah, we just lost. Well, hopefully.
Hey, go back to the past, my brother.
All right. So in the meantime, while Andre's getting sorted out, we want to hear from you. What is a notice of objection and a notice of assessment?
What is a notice of objection and the notice of assessment? Give me a second, okay?
Yeah, man, do your thing.
Maybe try headphones if you have headphones, Andre. Somebody suggested that as well.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll just change my location.
That's better there now. Does anybody want to chime in? What is a notice of assessment and a notice of objection?
We need to see it in the chat, or you could tell us verbally.
We have sent out the gift cards. Thank you very much for your patience. Anybody who did not receive their gift card, I think there was 1 or 2 people that I don't have their information, but I'm pretty sure that they have won something throughout the duration of the episodes that we've had so far. If you could just share with us at the BBPA privately your information, and we'll have those sent out to you. But I'm pretty sure we've got the majority of people, and they've been mailed out. You should have received them by now. So, notice of objection, notice of assessment.
What do we have here?
Does anybody want to take a shot at what that is?
I can, but it's kind of not fair.
Oh no, everything is fair. Everything is fair.
Come in confidential. Come in with confidence.
So the notice of objection is when you make a debate about the, hold on, this is the one I didn't know about. The debate of your taxes. So it could be how you're taxed. You have up to a year to debate about it, and I don't remember the last part.
Okay.
And the notice of assessment is just basically showing the review of your income tax that year that you guys did, whether it's trying to remember your tax-free savings, your RRSP contribution, and just the refund or the balance that you owe as well.
Andre, you with us, my brother, or we'll get Michael to chime in?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, perfectly now.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, my connection was unstable up top. But yeah, Camille, I thanks for the great answer. So that's correct. So notice of objection is so it can be both formal or informal. So an informal objection would be you just write a letter to the CRA saying, hey, Mr. CRA or Mrs. CRA, I object because of X, Y, Z, right? So you literally write a letter to the CRA stating your concern or what you disagree with, and they will take a look at it. The notice of assessment is your official receipt from the Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA, stating what you filed. So if you reported income of 40 grand, then you will get that receipt saying this is the income that you reported, and this is your refund or balance owing. So that's the notice of assessment. It's important to keep the notice of assessment because if you want to access certain financial products, so for example, mortgages, they may require you to show notice of assessment because it confirms how much you've made as an employee. This becomes far more important if you're self-employed, right? Because this is an official document that the CRA issues to the individual that says we've confirmed this is how much the person made. So if you're a self-employed person, it's important that you have your notice of assessment as proof. All right. Any questions or concerns regarding notice of assessment and notice of objection? All right, good stuff. I'm still good, right? Everyone can hear me?
Perfectly.
All right, perfect. Good stuff. All right, so on the objective side, I have 2 objectives, but it's gonna take a lot of work. It's not brief. So we're going to talk about SMART goals, and we're also going to talk about creating a financial plan, right? So we're going to talk a bit about what those are. Some people might be familiar with SMART goals. For some people, they might be hearing it for the first time. All right. All right. So in the very beginning or very first presentation, we talked about the concept of credit, right? And I know from the Caribbean or wherever some of us are from, we've never heard about credit, right? We've never had the opportunity to use credit to buy things, right? So it's a new concept. So what really is credit? We've talked about this in the first week. Is it's your ability to go into a financial institution and say to the lender that, hey, I am trustworthy, right? I am asking you to give me X amount of dollars, or I'm asking you to hire me, or I'm asking you to give me a car and I'll repay you, right? It's you saying, I am worthy to borrow from a lender. That's really what it is, right? So that credit, the concept of credit. And in North America, there's what they call credit score, right? So it ranges from 800 to 900, right? And so if you have a credit score that's within that category, you are considered to have an excellent credit. But before I move on, I want to actually ask people, can I get some feedback in the chat as to anyone who actually went and checked their credit score or taking steps to improve their credit score since we talk about the concept of credit in week 1. So since you've heard this concept, or if it's a refresher for you, can you just comment in the chat whether or not you went back and you look at your credit score or whether or not you've taken any steps to improve your credit score? All right, so Judith check hers every 2 weeks, so that's good. Amanda check hers every 3 months, good. Check mine frequently. Trisha checks hers frequently, that's very good. All right, so you need to determine the frequency of, like when you're gonna check your credit score. Keep in mind that checking your credit score it shouldn't only be done when you're applying for a financial product or if you're looking for an apartment to rent. This is we're living a big system, and there's a lot of scams and fraud around the world, and people can easily steal your identity. So you want to make sure that no one is applying for credit products on your behalf, right? So it's important that you develop a routine as to the frequency of when you're going to be checking your credit score or your credit report, right? So one thing I'll say, and I don't want to discourage people from using, credit improvement, like people who offer themselves as potentially being able to improve your credit and they charge a fee. The thing is about credit, it's really doing the opposite of what caused the credit score to decline in the first place. So for example, if you have a late payment, right? The late payment takes a while before it falls off your credit report. However, what you can do to improve your score is to make sure that you're making your payments on time. And once that time period comes for the late reporting to fall off your credit score, your score will go back all the way up, right? So it's, I know you might find people or services advertising, saying that they can help you to build your credit report or build your credit score or your credit history or whatever the case may be. Really and truly, like I said, it's just doing the reverse of what caused the issue in the first place. And that is looking at your credit report and understanding what is impacting your score, right? We also talked about the fact that you can dispute things on your credit report. When I first moved to Canada, I had a negative situation with a lender. It was a phone company. I never knew anything about credit, and I had a collection on my record, right? That adversely affected my score for a long time. Long behold, they had the collection on my report twice. So 2 separate company. So the company that I had the collection with, they sold that balance to other collection agencies, and those agencies duplicated the reporting on my thing. So it was having a double impact. And so what I did was to write a letter to Equifax and TransUnion. Those are the 2 credit rating companies in Canada. So I wrote to both of them, and I asked them to remove one of the collections from my thing because it's incorrect. And I sent documents to prove, and they were able to remove it. So that's something that you can do. So that's just reviewing, credit there. And here are some of the factors that affect your credit score and the ones that have the biggest impact. So your payment history has a 35% impact. All right. So if you are late on payment or not, not paying your bills when you're supposed to, or any missed payment, it will have a 35% impact on your score. So whatever your score is, you're going to deduct 35% off that score. That's a huge impact. So you definitely want to make sure you're paying on time. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of calling your lender and making an arrangement with them if you can't pay. Because it's not an automatic case where as you are late or as you miss a payment, it's going to show up on your score. If they don't hear from you, they are going to report it to the bureau. So you need to call them and say, hey, I'm going to be late, or I might miss a payment. Not only is it going to save your credit score, but it's also going to save you the non-sufficient fund fees that is going to come out of your account when they try to do the automatic withdrawal. All right. So 30% impact on the amount you owe. So this is really talking about your debt utilization ratio. So if you have a credit card and you're using more than 25 to 30% each reporting period, it's going to have an impact, right? So you want to make sure that you're trying to keep your usage at 30% or lower. You can always max the card if you have the ability to pay it off before your reporting period. So what I will do sometime personally is I'll see a flight or pay for school. My CPA courses, they cost like $1,500. I'll pay for the course on my credit card. That maxes my credit card, but then I still had the money to pay it back right away. So you want to make sure that you have a plan to pay off your credit card. That's the most important thing. Right? And just to remind people again, so we also talked about debt and debt management, right? And one of the things that a lot of people think debt is a bad thing, right? I don't want to give the impression that debt is a bad thing. Debt is not a bad thing. It's how you manage debt. Even the richest people in the world have some kind of debt, right? If you look at business balance sheet, you'll always see some type of debt. People borrow money, and that's fine. The most important thing is that you have a plan of how you're going to repay and have the discipline, right? To know when you're taking on too much debt. Those are the most important things, the behavioral aspect as it relates to debt management. And so this definition that I came up with is debt management is the ability to manage your obligations in a prudent manner without taking on significant financial risk, right? So you don't want to take on more than you can handle, okay? Right. And just to recap from I believe this was week 2 or week 3, we talked about the types of debt. So there's good debt, there's bad debt, and there's ugly debt. So good debt is a debt that will ultimately increase the value of your assets, right? So some of the primary examples in this category is things like mortgage, things like home equity line of credit, and things like student loan. So you always want to evaluate your personal circumstances. The most important thing is whether or not the type of debt that you're taking on increases your value, right? So if it is that you're taking on a loan for whatever reason and it's not increasing your value, then it can become a bad debt. So for example, the home equity line of credit, it's a good debt because it offers low interest rate that you can use to invest to make more money at a higher rate, or you can use it to acquire properties or reinvest in an existing property to increase the value of the asset. So in using it in that manner, it creates a good debt. If you use it for traveling and buying consumer goods, then it becomes a bad debt. So the most important thing is deciding how you're using the debt. The debt in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's how it's being used, right? So I want to make that important distinction as we talk about debt. And so on the bad side of the debt, so we have things like credit cards, right? So credit card is considered a bad debt because it doesn't increase your value, right? It doesn't increase the value of your physical asset or your human capital, you as an individual, right? All it does is attract really high interest rate. And so that's why it's considered a bad debt. The other one is overdraft. And I've shared with you in the beginning the cycle that overdraft creates, right? So you want to avoid that debt trap. Auto loan, and then we talk about the ugly debt, right? And so payday loan, we've talked about this being ugly because it's far worse than a credit card and the APR, annual percent interest rate. So a lot of people tend to look at payday loan in isolation, meaning you go in today and you borrow X amount of dollars and you pay 15%. You're like, okay, this is lower than the credit card because I only pay this one time 15%. However, if you're going in every 2 weeks, every time you get paid and you're taking money, then the annual rate that you are paying back becomes more significant. So if you take 26 bi-weekly payout at 15%, that's 390% per year, all right? So you definitely, you wanna avoid payday loan at all costs. Obviously, I don't know everybody's personal situation, and there might be challenging times and your only option is a payday loan, but you want to make sure that you are going through all your alternatives, right, to make sure that you're choosing the one that is best given your current circumstances. And we also talked about debt management strategies. So if it is that you acquired too much debt, or you have sufficient debt but you're looking for the best strategy, so you can do the minimum payment method, the snowball method, the avalanche method. So the minimum payment is where you're literally making the minimum payment. And we said the biggest disadvantage to this one is that the interest, right? So you're paying a lot of interest because you're only making the minimum payment, and it's going to take you a longer time to pay off, right? The snowball method, as depicted in the image here, is that you start with a smaller debt, right? And then you gradually go down to the big debt, right? This method, it's effective, it lessens the amount of time and it increases your motivation. However, it doesn't take into account interest. Because it's starting with the smallest debt, as you can see, the smallest debt may or may not have the lowest interest or the highest interest, I don't know, right? But it doesn't care about interest, it just starts with the smallest debt. Where the avalanche method is the opposite of the snowball. Avalanche method is where you start with the highest interest debt first, right? This method reduces the length of time to repay the debt, but it also saves you a lot in interest. When I was in debt many years ago, I used this method, the avalanche method, and I started with my highest debt, right? Long behold, my highest debt was my auto loan, right? And it accumulated the most interest, and I wanted to get rid of that one first. This one, it gives some motivation, but it takes a longer time to realize that motivation because you're tackling the biggest debt first. All right, any question on the comprehensive review that I just did before we go into goal setting and financial planning? Any questions, feedback? All right. So now we're going to talk about goal setting. I think someone just commented here.
So somebody said, so avalanche method is better?
All right. So, I mean, for me personally, I think it's better for me. It's one of those things that you have to look at your personal situation. But here's why I personally think avalanche method is better, is because it takes into account interest. So by using this method, you're saving a lot in interest, right? So if you're using the avalanche method, you're going to save more money in your pocket. But again, it depends on your personal situation, because if you can't afford to make those larger payments first, the snowball method might be better, because let's say I have 3 debt, one for 10 grand that requires a $500 a month down payment, another one for let's say 5 grand, and one for 2 grand. Maybe for the 10 grand, I can only make the minimum payment of 5 grand. And then I can pay off the rest, and I might have a little wiggle room to pay off the other ones. What you can do is that you take the $2,000, you pay that off first, and then whatever you are paying toward the 2 grand, you can take that to pay off other one, and you kind of work your way up. But so by eliminating one debt, it frees up more cash flow to pay off the other one, and you just keep doing that. So for me personally, like I said, it depends on your circumstances. Personally, I think avalanche is better because of the interest, but snowball is also effective because once you pay off one thing, I don't know about you, but once you pay off one of those debt that's been lingering for years, you feel good. You're like, yeah, I accomplished something, right? You feel good about yourself. So you just have to look at what you can afford and what you can't afford. Good question. All right, so we're going to talk about the theory of goal setting. Perfect. And so Camille giving some feedback there. So the snowball is great for individuals that need to see small awards, which is very true. That's the purpose, the major purpose of the snowball method. All right. So the theory of goal setting really involves the development of an action plan designed to motivate and guide a person or group toward a goal, right? So I know that all of us, we all have goals and we all have objectives and things that we need to accomplish in life, right? However, we don't really have a plan or a specific enough goal that we can accomplish. So for example, somebody might, I myself, I might get up and say, I need to go to university, right? That might be a goal, but when? What does it take to go to university? Do I need to do any courses? You know what I mean? So when you make a goal that's so broad enough, it doesn't add any value to you as an individual, and it becomes less of a motivation to accomplish that goal, right? Because you're uncertain, you don't know what it takes to get there, right? So we're going to talk about a few things that you can do to make sure that your goals are achievable, right? And so the first step is to decide what your lifetime goals are, right? And so when I mean lifetime, I don't literally mean that you're going to create goals for when you turn 70 right now, right? You don't have to go that far. You know, you need to set goals that are more the time-based, more realistic time, right? But you can also have goals that are there in the long term that you're thinking about, but you obviously want to accomplish these shorter term goals first, right? So step one, I created this nice chart here that gives you some different categories. And what this actually depicts, and I think a lot of people might see that immediately, is a vision board, right? So one of the most effective things that people do in order to achieve their goals is to create a vision board. So, you know, you put your board on the wall, and whatever goals you have, you either stick a picture on it and put a timeline, or you write it, whatever it is that you want to do. But it helps you to see visually, right? Because some people are visual learners, but you can see right away what it is you're trying to accomplish, right? But you want to make...
Sorry, Andre. If I could just jump in there, and the significance of seeing your goals or what your aspirations are. If you think about some of the major restaurant chains, you know, they from the time you are 2 or 3 years old, you're able to identify it just based on the frequency of seeing it. So if we do the same thing as individuals, and we have our goals just posted, or, you know, every time we enter our bathrooms or our bedrooms, that we're seeing it, it becomes our reality. You know, we identify it and we get closer to it. So seeing is believing. And what Andre is saying here is so significant in terms of convincing ourselves also of what we need to do and accomplish.
That's a great way to measure as well, measure your accomplishments as well, Rod, because, you know, when you look at the theories like the 10,000 hours it takes to become an expert at anything, you have to be monitoring your progress, because once you monitor it and you recognize from a positive perspective what you're achieving, or from a negative perspective what you might be slacking on, then that both scenarios are meant to motivate you to go into action mode, right? Either to continue the positive action or to rectify the lack of action, right, that falling into a slump might be causing.
Okay.
Definitely. You know, I completely agree. And I have a question here. Are house payments still considered good debt if it is not generating income via rental? So good question. Is that Tyson? How do you pronounce the name? Sion? Sion, okay. Perfect. All right, so here's the thing. When it comes on to property, right? It will be considered a good debt, because here's why. With properties, there are two ways in which you can earn or generate income. So one of those is through rental income, right? So that's one. The other one is through capital gains appreciation. So if you bought a house today for 100,000, and then that house becomes 400,000, then you gain $300,000, even though you're not getting rental payments, right? And so that's the rationale behind why a house would be considered, you know, a good debt, right? And in Canada, as we've seen, you know, houses continue to appreciate, you know, houses continue to go up in value. So that would be the reason why it would be a good debt. But if it is that you can even generate both, so if you were to buy investment property, definitely you would generate two types of income, you know, one through rental income and the other through capital gains. But either one you can generate through buying a house. And then the other question I have here from Amanda is, does family have two subcategories? It's there ×2. I'm not sure I understand.
It's on the chart that you have there twice.
Yeah, but when she means ×2, like,
no, because it's on there twice, I was thinking extended family versus immediate family.
I just see what you're saying. Okay. No,
I told her that family's important. That's why we got it on there twice.
No, it's a duplicate. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, no, so family is not ×2. Okay, so but these are some of the aspects of our life. This, you know, this is not everything, but these are some of the most important ones. So you definitely, when you think about goals, you don't want to just set one goal. You know, okay, I just need to get a job. Even that is not a goal, like, oh, I need a job, right? That's just a statement, right? A statement of, you know, you declaring something, right? But you want to balance things. And, you know, it's, you know, goal setting is actually one of the most important aspects of human existence, right? Even when I take business courses in school, like, this is one of the section in the course that's always emphasized. And so you want to make sure that you're creating a balance, right? So what are my financial goals? What are my career goals? You know, what is my goal for education, for family, for public service? You know, my physical goal, my health, mental health. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure that you're creating a balance so that at the end of the day, you can feel fulfilled. All right? So how do we create these goals and to make sure that we can achieve our goals? Right? So there's a widely used criteria. I mean, there are other criterions, but this one is well known. It's called a SMART goal setting criteria. Right? So the SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time box. On some websites or some platforms, you might see M, whereas measurable meaning meaningful. So some people say meaningful. Some people might say for relevant, you might see realistic or other things. But let's walk through. I created some scenarios here as to how we can set SMART goals, right? So taking the financial category that we just looked at. So for example, you know, I want to save $2,000 in 6 months, all right? So if you get up today and you're like, oh, I want to save $2,000, right? You haven't given yourself a timeline, so there's nothing to hold yourself accountable to, right? It's something that you want to do at some point in your life. You know, maybe you want to save 2,000 by the time you turn 65. I don't know, but you need to set a timeline so that you can hold yourself accountable, right? So is this a measurable goal? So by walking through the criteria, so I want to save $2,000 in 6 months. Okay, is it measurable? Yes, we can measure it because it's $2,000 that we want to save in a certain period of time. Is it attainable? I have here, yes, providing that you are earning an income that allows you to save. So of course, you want to make sure that you're looking at your personal situation, right? I see a lot of times, and I see it all the time, I'll be on Facebook and somebody will post in one of the investor group, oh, I have $10,000 and I want to make 1 million in 2 weeks. Is it possible? And I'm like, what the hell? You know what I mean? You need to make sure your goals are realistic. You know, you don't just come with these big goals that, you know, they don't make any sense, right? Is it relevant? You know, will this make me feel, you know, is this something that relates to my life? Yes, saving can be rewarding, right? It's good when you realize that, okay, I can save something. So you want to make sure that it has some meaning and some significance to you and what you're trying to accomplish or your family, right? Is it time box? Is there a timeline to it? Yes, the goal is to save $2,000 in 6 months, right? So you want to make sure that your goal is so precise and specific that in 6 months time, I can come and I can say, okay, did I save $2,000? No, I didn't. Then you didn't hold yourself accountable, right? And so now you're going to say to self, hey, self, you need to do this. I'm giving you one last 6 months, right? So your mama or your dad or whoever might walk by and you're in the room talking to yourself and think you're crazy, but you're not crazy. You're just starting out your SMART goals, all right? So make sure those.
If I could touch on this also too, Andre.
Sure.
We help a lot of people, Farley and myself, in the work that we do in terms of setting goals. And one of the important aspects of what you have here is the attainable goals. And we actually want to set obtainable goals so that we're not defeating our attempts, right? So when we start with small steps and they basically come out to accumulate to be big goals, big steps.
Right.
We want small steps, big goals, right?
Yeah.
And when we make obtainable goals, you know, again, we're setting ourselves up for the likelihood of success.
Success, right?
So we want to make sure that, you know, what we're doing is attainable, but also going to challenge us. And then that also lends to the word of the day, commitment, because we have to stay committed to be able to fulfill our goals, right? So anything in terms of goal setting, you don't want to make your goals way too lofty. You may be at the end of the road, that is your ultimate goal. But when you're starting off, especially if you haven't really been able to set goals and meet your goals, you want to make them, again, as precise and attainable as possible so that you can track and see how far you've gotten over the time. And then obviously, just like that snowball effect, you know, your goals can become larger and you can see. And once you develop that recipe and you know the ingredients of getting to that goal, you know, then the world is yours.
100%.
And then one of the things, again, is when people aren't able, when they haven't made obtainable goals or haven't mapped out how they're going to get to their goals, you know, it can be very defeating, right? And, you know, sometimes people give up. So, you know, we to make sure that you get to where you need to be and how you're going to get there, make sure you draw that map out as concisely and as precisely as possible.
There's someone in the chat asked the question that if your goal is to go to post-secondary education, is it bad to count scholarships into your financials? And the answer is it's not bad at all, as long as the scholarships live out long. First of all, scholarships are earned, which means you're putting in the work. That's commitment. Secondly, if you should have a plan alongside the scholarship. So I would even call it a plan B, but you want to be doing the due diligence that is required so that if the scholarship doesn't transpire, you still have the financial stability as your alternative to not getting a scholarship or as a complement to getting the scholarship. You know, those of us who have gone to university on scholarships, you still need money outside of the scholarship, depending on the kind of school you're going to and the scholarship you have. So be mindful that you need to have, it's almost like having a diverse portfolio in terms of investment that Andre talked about. You want to have a diverse strategy for any goal you have. So, you know, when I was judging on Canadian Idol, people thought they'd come up and sing and they'd think Canadian Idol was the end all be all. And I'd always say to people that we send home, this is not the end all be all. There are other ways to become successful in the industry.
Right.
This is not the end all be all. So crying and all of the sob stories, while we comforted and appreciated them, we had to make sure people left understanding that there are alternative roads to success. Same with going to post-secondary, same with saving for a home, same with all the things. And Andre could certainly echo all of those.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna add to that, Farley, and you know what Roderick said is just like, you know, what it's just like Jamaicans would say, you have to learn to creep before you walk. So you have to take those baby steps into achieving your goal. Just to add on what Farley said. So Keisha, your question is a good question. You have to be careful with goals in the sense that so going to university by X date, it's a goal that, you know, you can easily attain. With scholarships, it can be a goal, but it's a bit challenging. And the reason why I say that is because the outcome is uncertain, right? So when you're setting goal, you want to make sure that you have some control over the certainty, right? Because with a scholarship, you can put in the application and they can reject you. And what that does at the time, when you already got accepted for a university and whatnot, you know, you feel disappointed because the scholarship didn't go through. So just to add to what Farley's saying, you definitely want to diversify how you're going to fund university. So scholarship is one. You know, you can set a smart goal. All right. So I'm hoping to get 5,000 in scholarship. Then I'm going to save 10,000. Then my parents going to give me X or whatever. So you want to diversify. You don't want to say depend on that scholarship, because if it doesn't go through, you're going to feel disappointed. Right. So as you're setting these goals, make sure there's some degree of control over the outcome. If you don't have control, it means you need to diversify your strategy.
Andre, the other key thing is a scholarship is someone else investing in you,
right?
But you have to invest in yourself, because the benefit of the higher education comes to you. So you want to invest in you. That's a basic reason why you should diversify. Is so that you control your own investment. A scholarship is an external investment in you, and that a return on what you've done, you know, to deserve it. But certainly it's someone else's saying that you deserve this, as opposed to you saying to yourself, I deserve this. And when Rod talks about commitment and stick-to-itiveness, that's belief. Commitment to yourself is the most important thing. And that's not selfish, that's self-full. That if you commit to yourself, other people will be able to rely on you much, much more.
100%. I see Marlene fire there. Marlene wants to say something.
Another word we use with the youth, instead of saying relevant, we say realistic, because sometimes their goal is way off, and contingent plans. So, you know, you're wishing to get that scholarship, but just in case you have a backup plan, you being realistic, you can get a part-time job to supplement. You have to be as realistic as you can for yourself, not for the next person, but what
precisely. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, so I agree, Marlene. So realistic is, and I mean, in my personal goal setting, I'd probably use realistic, because it's important. You want to make sure that you're setting realistic goals, right? Don't say, I'm going to become an astronaut by the end of 2020, right? Or I'm going to travel in 6 months, right? You want to make sure that.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
You want to make sure that in assessing your capability and your resources, that you're able to realize the goal, right? So don't set yourself up for failure. And I think this is what Roderick was alluding to earlier, right? So, Keisha, there to your question, your plan or your goal would be to go to university by XYZ time. Your plan of how you're gonna fund university would be those different income streams.
I think it's important to know that realistic and relevant are not synonyms, though. They're not the same word. So although we replace it, relevance is still key, because in terms of the type of scholarship you're going after, for instance, if you're doing well in let's say in the liberal arts, you don't want to be applying for scholarships in science if you don't have the science background. So relevance is still relevant, right? Or relevant is still relevant, but realistic, they're complements to one another.
They're complements, right?
Yeah, they're not synonyms.
Good point. Good point. Anyone else want to chime in? I love the discussion on goal, because, you know, I've talked to so many people and they will just say, oh, I need to do this, right? My plan is to get a job by in 2 weeks. You know, I'm going to move it. And one of the crazy thing is, and you probably heard it before, I've talked to kids who are like, 16 and 17, and they're like, I'm going to move out of my parents' house by 17 and I'm going to get a job. How about you get the job first and have some stability, then you move out, right? And so this is why goal setting becomes important, because even though you might have one big goal or certain goals, you might need other goals that you need to achieve first in order to fulfill that bigger goal, right? And I think that's a part that sometimes get overlooked.
You know what?
Right, Andre. Sorry, go ahead.
You know what, too? One of the things we have to help them to think, to be able to, is to think things through, to sit down, start, not say, I want to do this, but thinking, critical.
Critical thinking, that's exactly it.
Yeah. And this is the importance of mapping things out, right?
I like what Farley said about me. What's it called? Impulse control and retention. I put it.
And deferred gratification as well. So
Deferred gratification, right.
So to Rod's earliest point about the small steps, big moves, right? Many young people who say if you use Andre's scenario about moving out of their home and getting a job and don't have a resume ready, for instance. So what's important to remember here is luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So you should have your resume up to date, sitting in your wherever you keep your files in terms of accessibility. You should have your resume ready, because if you run into anyone, someone like Rod, Andre, myself, Michael, Marley, whoever it may be, and they say, oh yeah, I just saw a posting, or I know somebody at this place, but you got to get your resume in by today at 5 o'clock. And oh boy, I never get it, like. I just naturally go into Jamaican there, but I can say the Trinity translation. Oh gosh, boy, I ain't do that yet, no man. but the reality is you have to have those little things ready. Those are the small steps. Your resume, your everything. Just keep your resume current.
And as a part of mapping. Right?
Yes.
Research is a part of mapping.
Yes.
Right? And if we're not doing the research, and if we're again just making rash decisions in terms of our goals, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So just like if you're going from Scarborough to Etobicoke, and then it's the first time you're taking the bus, you've got to map your way out on on the PPT, and to know how you're going to get there, right?
How long it's going to take?
Absolutely. How long it's going to take.
I know you have to get up early. You have to get up early.
Right. All factors that are going to allow you to successfully get there, you've got to map out. And again,
that's the relevance right there, Rod.
Right. And as Andre mentioned earlier on, when you see it, when you've got that on your wall or whatever it may be, it becomes more of a reality. It becomes a part of who you are. And it's not a destination that you're going to get to. It's a journey that you're taking, right? Yeah. And life is a journey. And goal setting is one of the journeys that we should be taking in our lives. And a lot of times, just to be perfectly honest with you, in our communities, because we've been just trying to get where we need to get to or get by. Sometimes goal setting is by the wayside. So we definitely want to intentionally start our SMART goals, right? Yeah. And again, when we take these small steps and accumulate to big moves, we're able to then make our goals even that much more loftier, or that much more in terms of what we can gain from them, so that we can accomplish those successfully, right?
Yeah. One last thing I'd like to ask is when I hear young people say, I want to move out of my parents' home, sometimes that's the last goal, the last thing you want to do, because your mom's home, your parents' home is a cushion to save. So you go off and go rent someplace and you can't afford it. So it's about thinking things through and making it's relevant. I mean, thinking it through first, all the variables. All the variables.
And that's an important point, Marlene. I saw this post on, I believe it was Instagram or Facebook, but it says what we need to teach our kids is how to weigh the decisions, today and the impact on tomorrow. And I feel like goal setting is one of the most important things, because in everything we do, there are goals involved. But if we do it the right way, right? If we research, it's just like you get up and you want to go on your birthday trip to Dubai. You'll actually get up, you do the research, what it takes, how much you're going to need to spend, what's the cost. So that's the type of things that we need to do. You might look up what the laws are in Dubai, whatever. But some people will say, and it's true that we can't, and I agree, that we can't predict the future. However, there are things that we can do to kind of gear us in a certain path, things that we can do today. Right? And so this is why goal setting is important, because it helps us to weigh those decisions, right? The decisions today and how they're going to impact our tomorrow. Right. So this is one other thing that I would implore everyone on this platform today, is to start creating SMART goals. It should become a routine in your life, such that when you're creating goals, you don't even have to think about whether or not it's SMART, but you've already written the goal in a SMART way, right? I will tell you, you'll see a big
difference. And if I could just put in the last piece on this, Andre.
Sure.
And people, please remember this, write it down. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I got that. If you fail to plan, which is like setting a goal, you plan to fail. So planning is an integral, essential part of what we need to do for our goals. And that we need to plan that out. We need to map it out. And as you'll see with anything in life, when you plan it out, there's a better likelihood that you achieve and accomplish it as if you don't, or when you don't, sorry. All right, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, Roderick. All right, so here are some quick tips for goal setting. So be positive, right? You don't want to write your goal and say, oh, I hope to save 2,000 by June, or I wish I can save 2,000 by the end of the year. No, you want to be positive. I am going to. My goal is to, right? I'm going to be prudent in, right? So you want to be positive and use positive words, right? So you don't just want to just write down things for write it down sake. You want to feel positive about it, right? And then you also want to be precise. Like, I don't want to look at somebody's goal and it's like a half a page. You know, I was born in 1962 and someday I hope to do this. And, you know, that's how, you know, the funny part about that is that that's how I learned about goal in primary school. The teachers would ask you to talk about what you hope to achieve in 5 years. In the next 5 years, I hope to achieve, to become this, or I want to do this. And you write this lengthy page about how you want to become something or what you want to achieve. But what's missing is the roadmap that Farley and Roderick mentioned just now, how you're going to get to that point. And so even in how we teach our kids, you know, you want to talk about the fact that you can become a pilot, but as the parent, you know, you have to coach them in terms of what it takes. How do I get there? How do I get from being this person now to this point? And I feel like that's the most important thing. It's one thing to aspire and to dream about what you want. It's another thing to have a plan of how you're going to get there, which is what Roger just said. So write your goals down. You know, by writing them down, they become they become action, right? You hold yourself more accountable. Set performance goals and not outcome goals, right? So example here, the sons on the platform say, I want to impress my mother that I'm the best son. Okay, that's the outcome. How can you impress mom? By going to school or going to work each day, right? By helping with the chores in the house, by doing this, right? So you want to make sure you're focusing on the performance and not the outcome, because the impressing your mom would be the outcome, and that would be based on your actions. So if you didn't impress your mom, then you're going to feel disappointed. But your mom is also going to be disappointed because you're not doing your part as a son. So you want to make sure that your goals are performance-based, right? And as we've talked about, you want to make sure that they're realistic as well. So set realistic goals. Don't say things that you know are not possible.
And if I could just add one piece onto that, Andre, just to
Sure.
what you said. So in terms of being positive, there's something we call positive affirmations, right? So we got to speak it into existence. So as opposed to saying, I want to become a doctor, or I want to become an astronaut, or I want to become an accountant, right? You want to speak that into existence, and we want to say, I'm going to become an astronaut, or I'm going to become an accountant, and here's what I'm going to do. We want us to also substantiate our claims, right? And that just means basically instead of just having a short-winded aspiration, you're going to say how you're going to get to that point, that goal. And again, mapping is another way of doing it. So, you know, we're hearing these terms come back and pretty much recycle themselves, but it's very important to be aware of how we speak and then speaking it into existence, and also thinking it into existence. It's critical, and that's what we call positive affirmation. All right, thank you.
But here's a challenge. How do we meet the emotional needs or psychological needs of young people who are not motivated? I know there is an element of accountability and responsibility on their part, but how do we get them to be aware of the need to do this thing? And for example, they're depressed, or they're in such a state that it's hard to shake them or to get them to see what you want them to see. What are the as Roderick is talking, this comes to mind. What are some positive things that we can infuse into them to say?
Right. Okay.
Well, I think one of the key, if I could just share, one of the key things, Marlene, is the examples that are set around them, right? A lot of times when we look at our young people, we say, oh, this child, this child, that, and the examples around them are not necessarily what we would call exemplary examples.
Right.
Yeah.
Where they can be inspired by the success and the demeanor and the diligence and the commitment of the people around them. The examples are too few and far between. So what we sometimes have to do is expose them to individuals who can influence, that they can say, I'm going to follow that person's steps. Michael Lee Chin always says, find a mentor, find out what they did to get where they are, and do exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have the proper types of mentors around you in terms of positive progression in your life, it's going to be very difficult to come up with it on your own. And you talk to most successful people, they had at least one hugely instrumental or several people who were instrumental in the way they went about making their critical decisions, they're sticking to their goals and commitments, et cetera, et cetera. So what we in the community need to do, and this is why courses like this, beyond the knowledge that we attain on Flip, Floss, and Fly, it's about sharing it with the people, as somebody said, 4-year-olds on up, et cetera, et cetera. We have to make sure we're sharing the information that we know is right. Mm-hmm. So we can disrupt the narrative that anti-Black racism and colonization has entrenched in our mindsets. We have to reverse engineer, get back to that, what I call the place of Wakanda, where we're not oppressed, we're not, feeling that weight of a ceiling above our heads in terms of our growth. We have to do that, because otherwise, quite frankly, a lot of this stuff ends up being futile. Because
you're so right, Farley. One last point. I remember when I was doing the Youth Options and Opportunities program in an area. One of the things that we would do, we'll take the cohorts, because these were youth that were at risk or potentially at risk with the law. We'll take them to the financial district. We go on a trip, and we take them down, and it says, wow, I didn't know, because they've never gone out of their community. Or we take them to the college. We have a sightseeing. We take them around, and just to get them a feel of the environment, says, I can work here, I can be this. So sometimes, as you say, probably maybe their environment where they're at is limited in the scope of positive influence, but as a group, as a community, that person may not be able to find that mentor that we talk about, because it's all about networking. But as a group, as facilitating a group, we say, hey, we're going to take these 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds, these teenagers, we're going to take a trip down to show you what downtown, the Bay Street looks like.
Absolutely. All those things are relevant, Marley. Those are all relevant and good strategic ideas. But again, it has to be done, as you said a couple of times, has to be done as a collective, and it has to be done intentionally, right? If we're not intentional about what we're doing here, right, it's going to be,
And just one last
can I just add one thing? So one of the most important,
I said, go on now.
Go on now. All right. One of the most important thing too is that, and I think Amanda was alluding to this, is that sometimes it's not. And I grew up in Jamaica, and I understand the culture, right? And there's always sometimes this culture that me right and you're wrong, you're the parent, you're the child. I think it's very important that you understand the needs of your child, right? Absolutely. And I've seen this a lot of times. And actually, one of the kids that I mentor, and I won't, for confidential reason, I won't say too much. But what I see is that this child has a specific dream of something that he wants to accomplish, and because it doesn't fit into the realm of what the parent think is an acceptable career, she doesn't support it, right? And she doesn't support a lot of things that he does. And so what happened is that he goes out and he finds somebody who does support it, and that may not be the right person. So it's extremely important that we look at how our culture and how our bias can continue to cause that oppression of our child, right? You have to understand the needs of your child, and then you'll be able to provide a better guidance, right? So that's all.
You're absolutely right, Andre. And in the sense of, obviously we're an evolving species in terms of being humans, and often and our parents could be wrong, right? And our parents have drank that Kool-Aid that has been continuously being offered to us at no cost, and then that also fulfills
tremendous cost, but I know what you mean.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And just to go back to what Marlene was saying, everybody has had at least one point in time in their lives where they were able to accomplish and achieve something. So we want to look at those recipes, even if you're not in a position to goal set and to accomplish and achieve based on your realities at this point in time. There's one point in your life that you were able to succeed at something. So we want to use that recipe, to go back, to find it, to unearth it, to be able to apply it and transfer it to whatever scenario that we're looking at right now.
And Rod, you said something very key there. Our parents could be wrong, and we have to understand the person who teaches you learn from someone else. When you go back in this hemisphere, right? We're talking about the people who are colonized, and it sounds like a broken record, but it's critical to understand it. Rod always says it's not a blame game, it's an explain game. But if we don't understand that the parenting style is through the Caribbean, et cetera, through a slave mentality, is absolutely not who we are. That's a speed bump in our legacy, and we have to crush it and move on, move back first, and so we can understand who we truly are and move forward so that who we are in the future is connected to who we truly are, not who we've become as a result of that speed bump. So understand that the grandparents, I mean, I'm in the mall sometimes, I see us, a parent dragging their child and doing this kind of stuff. That comes from an enslaved mentality. Understand it, folks. And I have debates even with my own family, extended family. Yeah, I glad my mother beat me. That's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
Yeah, so true.
Right? And we have to have the confidence and the courage, and still respectfully. Obviously, we've learned great things from our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, there's a massive dose of slave mentality in that formula. And until we dilute that and replace it with the original formula, if you will, right? We're going to see a perpetuation of these people falling through the cracks, our people falling through the cracks, falling on the streets, falling out of school, falling out of progress, falling out of employment, et cetera, et cetera. We have to recognize that first. You got to know what the wound is before you start to heal.
And that's key.
Touch it to the core.
It's not just the individual, it's an actual healing of community. And Farley just nailed it, hit it right on the head, in the sense our community continually needs healing. For us to be able to go forward, we need to be able to understand what those wounds are, and then be able to get that therapy to move forward, so we can move forward and not have to rely on some of the old ways that haven't worked for our community.
That's where I was going. That's exactly the point.
And just in terms of, before we move to the next point, Farley and myself and the BBPA are going to be endeavoring on a new initiative. It's going to be called Mentor Me, and we're going to be pairing people up with mentors from across the country, the same way that we're doing Flip, Floss, and Fly, along the same measures of being able to offer mentorship and guidance and leadership for our young people.
What age there, Farley? Roger?
Well, we're going to be starting at age 14 up until 29, but more information is to come shortly. Andre, get back to you. Sorry about my brother. I know we're
all right.
Still part of the capacity building.
All right. So as part of, it was a really good discussion. It's extremely crucial that we have these discussions. So I want to take a look at a quick financial plan here. So let me just pull that up. And we're just going to take a look at what it looks like and some of the things that you need to include in a financial plan. Let's get back to share my screen. All right, so can everyone see the plan here? All right, so this is a Money Sense complete financial plan kit. So really, in most financial plan, like if you go to a financial advisor or a mortgage broker or whomever, they're going to start with your current situation. So what is the state that you're in at the moment, right? And so you can do this for yourself, right? So, the most important thing is to take a look at your finances. So, okay, I currently owe $10,000. I currently owe X amount. I currently have $5,000 saved up. Whatever it is, you need to take a look at your current state. Right? Then you can do your top 5 financial goals or your top 10, top whatever. It's easier to do 5 or less because it's more manageable, right? And so you can have 5 goals to start for the first year or whatever, and then you keep adding more goals, right? So don't overwhelm yourself and say, okay, I need to achieve these 20 goals by year end, right? Because that might be a bit challenging. So you want to make sure that you have control over your goals, and you want to be able to control the outcomes as much as you possibly can, right? One of the things that I do when I'm thinking about what I can control and what I can't is to obviously put them in that category. So I write down things and I said, okay, this is within my control or this is beyond my control, right? And so even in terms of your mental health, a lot of people I see overthink things that they cannot control, right? So you want to put into perspective the things you can control, right? So that's one thing you can apply here as you're going through, your financial goals.
Great advice, Andre. Great advice.
Thanks. And then I think Marlene did this, I think a couple of weeks ago. So she actually went through to all of her assets, right, and create a net worth statement. I'll tell you, a lot of people, I very rarely hear people talk about net worth statement. I know we all hear it on the news. Oh, so-and-so is worth 1 billion. So-and-so is worth this amount. But how did they come up with that number? It was a net worth statement. They look at all the assets and all the liabilities of the person, right? So this is something that we can do within our community to make sure that it's changing, right? So remember we talked about that road to zero wealth in one of the presentation. This is the statement that we're going to use to change that, right? And to show, that whoever published that article that, it didn't go in the direction that they projected, right? So we're going to write down all of our assets, right? And so here it has liquid assets. So when you hear the word liquid asset, it is asset that can be easily converted to cash. So cash would be a liquid asset because it's already cash. An investment in the bank or money in the bank account would be a liquid asset because you can get it easily. So anything that can be converted to cash easily is a liquid asset, all right? Registered investment accounts, I think the reason why they separate it here is because there might be some restrictions on the registered investment account, and it may take a while for you to get it because you have to complete this form, send it in, and probably wait 2 weeks. So it's not as liquid as other forms of cash. All right. So primary residence here, and you can have primary residence or multiple residence. This is assuming that the individual has a primary residence, which is your house that you live in, right? So what you will do, and I know some people will say a mortgage is not an asset. It's not, that's true, but this is where you're going to list the current market value of your house. So if your house is worth 700,000, you're going to put 700,000 as the cost of the primary residence. Any other assets that you may own, some people, if they've paid off their car, they may list it as an asset, right? And the reason for that is because it has a resale value, right? But in the technical definition of asset, it really is not income producing, but it has a resale value. So if you've paid off your car, you could potentially put it here. You could put jewelry, you can put artwork that have some kind of value. So you list all your assets, right? And then you add up all the assets, and that's going to give you your total assets, which we're going to call A. Now your liability, or liabilities, so we're going to list things like credit card balance. So if you have multiple credit cards, you can list all the credit cards, or you can add all the credit cards and put one number here as your credit card balance, right? Your equity line of credit. So if you have a house and you took out a line of credit on the house, that's an equity line of credit. If you've invested in stocks and you have a margin account and you've used margin, which is credit to buy additional stocks, that would be some kind of equity credit that you can also list there, right? Mortgage on the residence. So this is where you're going to list the balance of your mortgage, because the balance of the mortgage may or may not be different than the value of the house. So if you bought your house 10 years ago, it's now worth 700,000 and you have a 400,000 balance on your house. The net difference is 300,000, right? So you want to list the current balance of the mortgage there when you're doing your calculation, and any other liabilities that you have, right? So if you owe a friend or a family or whatever, right? And I'll tell you this, one of the things I don't like And it's a bad habit. If you owe a friend or a family member, list it as a liability and pay them. I hate when people borrow money and don't repay it. So that's something we need to change as well when we talk about community and trust. All right. And so you're going to add up all your liabilities. You can call it L or you can call it B. There's no fixed way. And then you're going to deduct the two. All right. So you're going to subtract L from A. All right. So net is asset. So the total of the asset minus the total of the liability. And that is what you are worth as an individual. Right. So maybe once you complete that exercise, you can say to a family member or a friend or a trusted person, you can tell them what your net worth is, and say, hey, I've done my assessment and I'm now worth X amount, right? But this is an important measure of building wealth because you can now look back in the year 2021 or 2022 and say, in 2020, I had a net worth of negative 5,000, but now in 2021 or beyond, I am worth 20,000. So you show that there's some improvement. And this can also be a long-term goal. You can say, by year 2024, I will have a net worth of $10,000. And you put your smaller goals to achieve that, right? So that can be one of your long-term goals to improve your net worth. And then the other thing you want to keep, so this financial plan is really, so we're putting everything that we've learned together in this plan in a comprehensive document. So then you can list all your income and expenses. It's very important, and I cannot emphasize enough the importance of doing an income and expenses statement. This is a personal cash flow statement. It tells you as the individual whether or not you're overspending, right? And it helps you to control your spending, thus creating a positive cash flow each paycheck or each month. And remember, your income and your expenses, they're all variables. They're things that can change, right? The one that you tend to have less control over is the income, because you get the job, you can't just go tell your boss, say, yo, how are you going to pay me some more money, right? You can't tell your boss that. But your expenses, you can say, okay, I'm going to cut back on eating out, or I'm going to cut back on this, right? There are things you can do in terms of your expenses to lower your costs. And insurance, you can list your insurance here. So if you had any, whole life insurance or anything, you can list the value of the insurance there as well as the premium, right? And so you keep going through. Your estate planning is there. So you have your investment planning and all your invested asset. You have your estate planning. So remember, we talked about estate planning. So you can put your checklist there. So my will, blah, 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 right? So you have your plan there, right? And so here is they're completing the document for you. So here we have Patty and Walter. They're both 34 years old and have 2 daughters, that Deborah and Mary, ages 5 and 12. They have a household income of 110 and a surplus cash of 20,000 each year. So how did they come to the 20? Most likely have a budget that tells them that they have a surplus. All right, these are their top 5 financial goals: to pay off 20,000 in consumer debt in 1 year. Is this a smart goal based on what we talk about? Why not? I see Marlene said no. Oh, you're on mute.
20,000 in 1 year. The word comes to mind, realistic. Is it realistic enough? Is it, factor in the what if, what could happen? I'm just thinking, because they have small kids. Yeah, I just think the what ifs. It's high. It's high. It's highfalutin. I think it could be more if it was 10. As somebody says, make sure what you do, you don't raise your blood pressure, that you can sleep. And that's my thought.
I mean, it's a good thought. I mean, it depends on their situation, because we haven't gone further. Maybe they're living somewhere where they're not paying rent. I don't know what their other expenses are. 110,000 is quite a bit. Maybe the kids are costing, you know what I mean? We don't know if this is this is income after tax, because it just says household income.
Yeah, but examples that I'm seeing has to reflect people or present realities.
Correct.
Okay?
Yes.
And so when I see this, and other people might say, "Oh my God, I don't even qualify. I can't. how would I do that? So it has to be to pay off 20,000, or there has to be another, you know, another scenario, or another figure.
So you wouldn't be setting your plan based on what you're seeing here. This is just an example. So your goal might be to pay off 1,000 in a year, right? So it depends on your situation, but following the SMART criteria, this would be a SMART goal because it's measurable. It seems like their circumstances, it's attainable, it's realistic, they have a timeline. So this would be based on their personal scenario. So your goals would have to follow your personal scenario, right? But as you can see, they don't just write to pay off $20,000, right? By when, right? Or to pay off my debt. What's your debt? How much you owe, right? But it's clearly stating the goal. So you want to make sure that your goals are following the SMART criteria. Right? So here we see that the
look at it as a formula with some variables, and you and your situation are the variable.
Yeah,
precisely, right? And so here they put in some numbers for us. So liquid assets, right? The total there 257. As you can see, the primary residence here is 250, and the mortgage has a balance of 150, right? So there are two different numbers, which is what I was trying to explain earlier.
Okay.
And so these people are they are $82,000. So if I decide to go and sue them, I can get $82,000 based on their net worth.
So is it static or fluid when you do something like that? Do you say to pay off this, or when you're setting goals in this setting here, this statement, it does have to be fixed, or does it has to? Do you have a, you know what I'm saying?
It's better to make it fixed, because if you put a range, it's harder to measure.
Okay.
Right. So you want to make sure that you can measure it. So when you make it fixed, then you can go back and say, it's almost like you have a checklist.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And then just a list of your income and expenses. And so as you can see, that's how they came up with the surplus. They stated this is their gross annual income. So we now know that this is pre-tax income or before taxes. And so in deducting all their expenses and RESP contribution and RRSP, they have a surplus of $20,000, right? So it makes sense that they can pay off the debt, Marlene, and even going back to it based on their scenario, because they have a cash surplus of 20,000. So it definitely means that they can pay off the 20,000 in debt. So given their scenario, they have a surplus of 20 grand, right?
I like the word down. It says combined.
Combined, right?
That was what was turning.
Yeah, it's a combined, and so even in this plan, you want to do a risk assessment. You want to, and just I think you alluded to this earlier, Marlene. You want to do what if. So what if I lose my job? What if this happens, right? So you can create those what if scenarios, and you can build strategies as to how you're going to deal with those what if scenarios.
Yeah.
Right. So you can probably even input a risk management plan in your financial plan and create a what if scenario based on what's going on in your life.
Good.
Right. And so that's really it. So here, estate planning, Patty Walter have already drawn up and executed both wills and powers of attorney, naming each other as primary executors, trustees, and attorneys. Right. So investment planning. So they see the investment policy statement.
So this is really a team or effort. This is teamwork effort on this one.
Right. So if you have a common law partner or you're married, definitely it's good to have a combined plan, but it's also important to have individual plans. Well, that's for me personally. In my marriage, we have individual as well as combined plans. All right. But it's important that you create a document like this, because it's a snapshot of your entire financial situation, right? It sums up everything into a comprehensive document. Any questions or concerns, any feedback? All right, so I need at least, let me see how many people on the chat. I need at least 5 people to come on and say, what they learned today and how they're gonna implement what they learned into their daily life.
5 people, either on the chat
At least 5.
How are we doing with the incognitos right now?
Actually, we got somebody here right now.
Yeah. Hi. Can you see me? Because I can't see myself, so I don't know how well
yes,
you
I can
see
see
me
you,
or not.
Monica.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Ça va?
So I think the part on goal setting was like, I learned a lot because some of the classes I felt a little distant because I feel like I'm a little younger than most people here. So I was like, okay, a mortgage. I was like, I mean, I like knowing how to do a mortgage, but okay. But this one was really like, it was close to home. I feel like there's no age to set goals, and the younger, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked, I think it was Farley that said that you should put the goals to see them, you know, on a sticky note, put it on your mirror every morning so you can see it when you wake up. And I think that's so great because I'm really good at setting the goals, but then reaching them is a little harder. But I think that I'm definitely going to implement that, and it's going to work. It's my goal to make the goal setting work. Okay, that's the first goal.
There you go.
Yeah,
I love that goal.
Yeah, and also the mind maps. I never thought of that. I never thought about making a mind map for myself. You know, you make mind maps for math class, for English class, for science, but you never think of making a mind map for yourself. But you're the most important investment. You're the most important class you really have. So I think it was very interesting learning about that, and I am also going to implement that. So
amazing.
Thank you.
I love that what you just said. You're the most important class that you have. Amazing. Again,
amazing.
We do this on a full-time basis, Farley and myself, and I'm actually going to borrow that if you don't mind. You are the most important class that you have. I love that.
No problems.
So we have a couple people chiming in on the chats. Somebody said, I'm definitely going to implement the SMART goals in my life and with others. And somebody else said, the SMART goal setting and credit loan segments was the most informative for me. These are topics I learned a little about in school, but this added more information to them. In the sense of learning, I can put into pay, or I guess maybe play
more
now.
Pay more often, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's great. All right. Any last comments then, Andre Farley?
Definitely. You know, I want to thank everybody for participating. So we're all here learning together. You know, the most important thing is implementing these things into your day-to-day living, right? It's very important that you take a look, assess your situation, and just like Monica says, you're the most important class. You're the most important person, right? Never underestimate the potential of investing in yourself. I grew up in Spanish Town, in a ghetto, and all I had as a boy was hope. But here I am today because I invested a lot into myself and I invested a lot into the people around me, right? So you make sure that you're investing in yourself, and you're never too young, you're never too old, it's never too late to learn, it's never too late to start, right? The most important thing is that you start, right? And I love the discussion. I look forward to coming here every Saturday. I look forward to all the platforms because I strongly believe in what I am doing in terms of financial literacy. It's something that I love. I've seen financial literacy across all the platforms, and I see people have information out there that are specific to other communities that don't necessarily benefit our community, right? Because it doesn't touch the core of who we are as a people. And this is why I really love what we're doing, right? And I just want people to continue to come out, have the discussion, and continue to bring people and to, you know, to engage the people around you and share what you learn, right? As well as implement it. That's it from me. I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to game 4 of Raptors and what's the team? Anyways, Raptors. I'm looking forward to game 4. Yeah, so gonna enjoy my Saturday, enjoy my long weekend. So everyone enjoy your long weekend. Have a great time. Don't party too hard. Don't drink too much. Make sure we see you again next Saturday.
Farley Flex, last words for the week. Or maybe he's not here with us right now. So just reminding people that the word of the week is commitment. Stay committed to yourself. You are the most important class that you have, and stick to it, and you will see those dreams not just become just stay in the dream state, they will become a reality. Okay, so we want to envision, and actually my advice for the day, dreams are usually when we're asleep. When we vision, we have a sense of what we want to have, and we can see it. So we want to make our visions a reality. So make that happen, stay committed, use conscious choices, and have the courage to take it to the next level. On that note, signing out for Flip, Floss, and Fly for another Saturday. Have yourself a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget to tell a friend to tell a friend. Oh, we got Farley here.
Yeah, sorry, I just have to go answer the door. No, just want to share briefly that, and Roderick probably said much of what I wanted to say anyway, but you know, get your plan started. Don't procrastinate on starting to plan. You have to start to plan right away, even if you write down what seems to be the smallest thing. Like, wake up tomorrow and write my plan. Like, whatever the plan, just start immediately. If you're inspired in any way, shape, or form, act on your inspiration. Don't let your inspiration transpire and disappear. Okay?
Absolutely.
So whatever you're feeling right now, get that notebook, get that Bristol board or whatever it is. Bristol board is like $1 at the dollar store, right? Just put it up where you, like Rod said earlier, somewhere where you pass by, whatever is that high sort of traffic area in your personal space, then that's the place your vision should be, right?
And another thing, Farley, it doesn't matter if it's minute or small or what, it's your plan. So don't feel inferior or said, oh my God, I'm not worth anything. Put something down, you'll see, and celebrate where you are right now. That's being
absolutely,
yes,
absolutely,
right. And then
wonderful weekend. Sorry.
Don't wait, debate, or procrastinate. A second from now is too late. Get it done. NOW now. Right now. Don't wait, debate, or procrastinate.
Oh, you're DJ there, Roderick.
Not only that, Rod, just to finish that off with a little bit of additional flavor, I'll put some chocolate essence. I was gonna say vanilla essence, but I thought you were gonna
say vanilla ice on that, brother. I said, nah, messing with that
no,
one.
No. But think about what now spelled backwards is what?
One.
There you go. So it's about winning. So you could say to yourself, I won over this challenge. I won over this sense of procrastination. Wow. Yep. So get it done now. All right, folks. Have a wonderful weekend.
All right.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Just before you go. So I don't remember who said it, but I was noting, you said, don't wait, procrastinate. Debate. A second from now, it'll be too late.
Don't wait, debate, or procrastinate. A second from now is too late.
I'm going to put it in the chat for you as well, okay?
Okay, thank you. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank
you. Don't close it off yet. Because
we're closing off with a little bit of music, and we're going to go to the best type of love. It's yourself. So love yourself. Again, you are the most important class that you'll ever have.
Wow. Love it.
That's it. Yeah.